and the vote was positive. Now, therefore, that it is inclusive of people that are between 16 and 18. I believe it's going to be the FDA's decision, and I don't know what their decision will be, to decide on that bracket of 16 to 18. Clearly, the companies are going to need, and we are supporting them, to study these vaccines in people that are 18 to 12, 12 to 5 or 6, 5 or 6 to 2, and 2 and below. And that goes stage-wise. And, we need to have more than 1,000 to 2,000 individuals per group to be able to document the immune response and also the safety of the vaccines in those populations.
So the pharmaceutical companies are going to need to do testing with those groups, with kids? Is that what's going to happen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what started today.
Oh, it started today. Okay. A senior administration official tells CNN that most governors have informed you at Operation Warp Speed that they expect to use up all of the vaccines that they're getting, 2.9 million doses, within days of receiving the first shipment. So what happens then? When will states be able to get more vaccines?
So the plan is to ship vaccines once a week and to inform the governors a week in advance about the number of doses that they will be receiving. Those vaccine doses that they receive are meant to be used in full in the population during that period of a week because the same states will receive an identical number of doses in the case of Pfizer vaccine 3 weeks later to give as a second dose to the recipients of the first dose earlier. The number of vaccine doses shipped is going to increase week on week because of the ramp up in manufacturing at Pfizer, and also hopefully when the Moderna vaccine gets approved, if it gets approved next week, there will be quite a significant further bolus of vaccine to be distributed. So maybe in the first week, most of the vaccine doses will be injected within 3 or 4 days, but thereafter I think it will take a week. I'd like to note that in the UK, I just learned this morning, I have interactions with my UK counterpart every other week in depth. 2,000 people have been vaccinated in the first 2 days. I think that's an appropriate pace. If I exemplify one significant state, would be equivalent to the UK, just to see how things are ramping up, are going. Today, for instance, there was also training that 3,300 people have attended, a live training on video to educate people on how to dilute the vaccine, how to prepare it for immunization, etc. And then they will practice and start slow and then ramp up.
Moncef Slaoui, thank you so much for what you do. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, go Birds. Any moment, the Supreme Court could weigh in on a lawsuit critics are calling a coup attempt on behalf of President Trump, and that's next. Plus, millions of Americans are on the brink. No jobs, no food, many about to be evicted. How close is Congress to finally reaching a deal to help the desperate American people? That's ahead.
If you love The Daily Show, now you can get it as a podcast. It's The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Ears Edition. You'll hear from Trevor and the correspondents on today's biggest news. You can also listen to highlights from the latest shows, hear extended interviews, and get exclusive extras. Get The Daily Show experience and dive into today's news, ears first. Listen to The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Ears Edition, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We are back with our politics lead. At any minute, we could hear the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on this deranged lawsuit from the Texas Attorney General challenging the election results of 4 states that President-elect Joe Biden won. Today, believe it or not, 20 additional House Republicans announced their support for that crazy lawsuit, bringing the total number to 126, much to the Republican Party's embarrassment and shame. Let's discuss. Abby, legal experts on both sides of the aisle, credible ones, have resoundingly said that they think the Supreme Court, even though they have 3 Trump-appointed justices, will resoundingly reject this challenge, being as it's nuts. So why are all these House Republicans signing on to it?
It's the same reason that they will not say a cross word about this president. They have to show their loyalty and their allegiance. You know, in each and every one of those districts, for the most part, you have Republicans who are reliant on a base that effectively worships President Trump. They can't cross him on this. And the whole point of a couple of days ago, there was a letter sent out to members urging them to sign on to this. And it was partly because there is a desire for the president to see who is behind him. He is asking to see the names, the list of names, so that he can hold accountable the people who are with him or against him. This is nothing more than the president showing off his political muscle, proving to Republicans that he's going to be a political force to reckon with right now, as well as potentially in 4 years if he does decide to run again.
So conservative legal experts, conservatives, have called this lawsuit garbage, insanity. I don't know one who has said even anything holding back at all. I mean, it is truly embarrassing, and you could go into detail and find examples of how nuts it is, just the idea that they pretend to not understand, the Texas Attorney General, that the votes that came in the middle of the night between Tuesday and Wednesday were largely vote by mail, and Democrats used that disproportionately. They pretend like, oh, it's such a mystery, it's evidence of fraud. It's not. We were saying for weeks before. Jackie, is there any point when any of this backfires on, forget President Trump, outgoing President Trump, on these House Republicans? I mean, just as an anchor, I can say, how am I supposed to take anything any of these people say seriously ever again?
You know, it's unclear if this will backfire on them, because to Abby's point, if you're someone in a Trump district who loves President Trump and thinks everything he says is true, you're rallying to these lawmakers and think it's a great idea. Now, the people I'm most confused about are the lawmakers from Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, who signed on to this, because they haven't really squared how, if this whole election was corrupt, why they should be in the seat that they're in. Like,
wait, you mean they haven't resigned? They haven't resigned, Jackie? I would think that intellectual consistency would demand, oh, I was elected fraudulently, I need to resign.
Totally, but that they haven't really squared that, but they're not going to. And those are the folks I just wonder if there's going to be any kind of repercussions from voters, come in 2 years, assuming they don't resign out of, being intellectually honest.
And Abby, look at this headline from PBS. I don't want to embarrass our friends at PBS, but the headline says Texas-led election lawsuit becomes conservative litmus test. I love PBS, but there's nothing conservative about this. The brief is a joke. It destroys any concept of states' rights. If it became law, it's not going to be upheld. But if it were, it would mean from now on, New York can sue Alabama because New York doesn't like Alabama's voter ID requirements. This is only about loyalty to Trump, right?
It is totally the opposite of a conservative ideology that you could literally just say, hey, I'm the state of Texas. I don't like what they are doing over there in Georgia. I'm going to sue to not only take it to the Supreme Court, but have the court throw out every single ballot that was cast in that state. None of that has anything to do with ideology. This is a party, the Republican Party, that has walked away from a lot of the things that have characterized the party. Small government, alliances overseas, all kinds of things that had characterized the party, or they wanted to characterize the party, limited spending, bringing down debt, so on and so forth. It's not about any of those things anymore. It's about whatever President Trump wants it to be about. That's why the Republican Party's platform in 2020 was effectively whatever the president says it is. They didn't even bother to do a platform because it was about the personality of President Trump.
Oh, and let me somebody just got in my ear. It wasn't actually a PBS headline. It was an Associated Press headline that appeared on the PBS website. My apologies to PBS. I love my friends from AP, but that headline was ridiculous. Abby Phillip, Jackie Kucinich, thanks to both of you. Appreciate it. How a single medical convention in Boston led to more than 300,000 coronavirus cases around the world. Stay with us. Back with breaking news on our Health Lead moments ago. CDC advisors said that they expect FDA authorization for the Pfizer COVID vaccine before tomorrow morning. That is a crucial step because as soon as the FDA makes this final decision, it will be the CDC that gives the final sign-off for Americans to be vaccinated. As CNN's Nick Watt now reports.
Any minute, the FDA could sign off on that historic thumbs up.
So we do have a favorable vote
From their advisory panel.
The FDA informed Pfizer that they do intend to proceed towards an authorization for their vaccine.
Medics, shippers are ready for the most complicated and consequential vaccine rollout in American history.
It's a beginning of the end of this crazy pandemic.
This weekend, the CDC will likely sign off on the vaccine and who gets it. Maybe Monday, shots in arms.
We could be seeing people getting vaccinated Monday, Tuesday of next week.
But it will be earliest the spring before most people can get a vaccine. The challenge, meantime, keeping as many Americans alive as possible.
Probably for the next 60 to 90 days, we're going to have more deaths per day than we had in 9/11.
Already averaging well over 2,000 lives lost every single day. That will rise because we're also averaging well over 200,000 new cases every day. And that number has never been higher. Los Angeles just smashed its daily case count high.
In this year of constant crises, this is the greatest crisis we have ever faced.
In Virginia, an overnight curfew kicks in Monday.
If you don't need to go out, go home. This is just plain common sense.
New York City and all of Pennsylvania will close indoor dining again.
We need to take further mitigation actions to protect Pennsylvanians and stop the spread of COVID-19. We all hoped it would not come to this.
It has, but at least there is now real hope.
If we have a smooth vaccination program where everybody steps to the plate quickly, we could get back to some form of normality reasonably quickly into the summer and certainly into the fall.
The economy back up and running, all kids back in school. And right now, Pfizer is studying its vaccine for use in the 12 to 16 age group. But remember, Pfizer is not necessarily going to be the only game in town. Moderna's vaccine is about a week behind. That FDA committee will meet on that next Thursday. So, Jake, maybe this time next week we'll have another vaccine to be all excited about. Back to you.
All right, Nick Watt, thank you so much. Appreciate it. CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, joins me now. Sanjay, the White House is ordering the FDA chief, Dr. Stephen Hahn, to authorize the Pfizer vaccine by the end of the day, or else he has to resign, according to Caitlin Collins reporting. CDC advisors think it's going to be authorized by tomorrow morning at the latest anyway. Do you share Moncef Slaouy's concern that this pressure by Trump and Mark Meadows, the White House chief of staff, might further undermine confidence in the vaccine?
Yeah, I really do, Jake. I mean, I talked to Stephen Hahn a couple days ago about this very issue. He got a couple of summons to the White House to talk to Mark Meadows even during the process a couple weeks ago. It was interesting because yesterday was a good day. It was a very transparent day. You got to see sort of the inner workings of an FDA advisory committee, and people, felt pretty comfortable. I talked to a lot of scientific colleagues, other people, to try and get a sense, and people were pleased with that level of discourse and then the entanglement of politics again. So it's a concern. What Dr. Hahn told me was that they have a very strong regulatory framework here. They obviously got some questions they're trying to answer, some of the ones you just discussed with Moncef Slaoui. They also got a robust legal framework by which they have to abide. It takes time. But, Jake, as you pointed out at the top of the show, it's pretty much clear that it's going to happen, and probably before 10 a.m. tomorrow. That's what we're hearing.
Yeah, that's why this bluster makes no sense. It's just undermining the president's own achievement by approving Operation Warp Speed. Sanjay, I want to ask you, there's this new study that uses genetic fingerprinting, suggesting that that biotech conference in Boston in February that we covered at the time led to 333,000 cases of COVID across the United States and Europe, making it one of the largest documented super spreader events in the U.S. What does this say to you about the scale and what we can be doing to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I mean, this was stunning. I looked at this study, and it was using basically identified a very specific mutation in the virus and was able to use that mutation to as a fingerprint to essentially trace. And they found that one person, one individual, likely led to 245,000 cases himself or herself. We don't even know. Another person probably led to another 88,000. It's a reminder. This was back in February. We obviously were still figuring a lot